Welcome to the deep dive. Today, maybe let's set aside the usual GDP numbers for a sec.
Okay.
We're looking at this piece, America's Fading Openness and Eroding Trust. It argues that global power today, it might be less about economic muscle.
And more about trust and how open a country seems.
Exactly. So our mission for you listening is to kind of unpack how some U.S. policies, things happening at home, might actually be, well, changing America's image abroad.
It's a really interesting angle. We're so used to tracking the hard numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Interest rates, trade balances.
Mm-hmm.
But this suggests a shift, that trust itself is becoming, a key factor. How reliable is the U.S. perceived to be?
Okay, so let's get specific. The article flags a few things. First up, international student visas. They mention restrictions there.
Yeah, that's a big one.
How does making it harder for students to come here, how does that play out globally?
Well, think about the brain drain, or rather the brain gain the U.S. has always benefited from.
Yeah.
International students, they don't just study here. They drive research, they start companies, they become leaders.
Mm-hmm.
If we make it tougher for them,
We lose out on that talent.
we potentially hinder our own innovation pipeline. It's been a huge historical advantage, attracting the best from everywhere.
Okay. Then there's R&D funding for universities. The article mentions cuts. That sounds like more than just saving money.
It can definitely be seen that way. Consistent R&D investment is what fuels future tech, future competitiveness.
Uh-huh.
Pulling back on that could signal to the rest of the world maybe a lessened commitment to staying ahead technologically.
And others are definitely investing heavily there.
Oh, absolutely. They're watching.
Another point made was this 3.5% remittance tax on non-citizens. That seems pointed.
It does raise questions about the message it sends, to immigrant communities, to foreign workers who contribute a lot here.
Feels potentially unwelcoming.
It could be perceived that way, yeah.
Yeah.
And that might influence decisions about where skilled people choose to work and live.
Now, here's something really puzzling the article notes. U.S. interest rates are up. Normally, that pulls money in, strengthens the dollar.
Right, that's the standard playbook.
But the dollar's actually been weaker than expected. What's that about?
That disconnect is, well, it's unusual. It suggests maybe investors are looking beyond just the interest rate returns.
Like seeing some other risk.
Possibly. Concerns about long-term stability or predictability, perhaps, something that's making them hesitate despite the higher yield.
But they're not pulling out in droves, are they? The article says U.S. Treasuries are still seen as the safe place to park cash.
And that's key. The U.S. Treasury market is just unparalleled in terms of size, liquidity, legal protections. There really isn't a direct alternative right now.
So it's like the default safe have.
Exactly. But that current stability, relying on that default status, it might be masking some of these underlying concerns about trust and openness that are building up.
So America's traditional unique selling point being the place for talent and innovation that's being challenged.
It seems to be, yeah. Other countries are actively trying to attract that same talent, building their own innovation hubs.
Like China, for instance.
Like China, like others.
Yeah.
If the U.S. looks less open, less reliable, well, that edge dulls.
And the long-term picture isn't necessarily like a sudden collapse,
Probably not.
but more a slow shift, a gradual erosion of influence based on these perceptions.
I think that's the argument, yes.
Yeah.
It's about the long game. Global partners, investors, even individuals, they watch how a country acts, how it treats people, how it keeps its promises. That's the foundation of trust.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the big takeaway seems to be America's standing isn't just about dollars and cents anymore. It's increasingly about perception. Are we open? Are we reliable? And some domestic choices might be putting that into question.
That sums it up nicely. It's about the intangibles becoming more tangible in their effects.
Definitely something to think about. So here's a final thought for you. What other seemingly domestic policies, things decided within a country's borders, might actually have the biggest ripple effects on the world stage down the road? Worth considering. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.